right, Andy.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Robert Review Stuff. I don't really know what to say about today's movie besides that remakes can be tough. I of course am assuming that because I've never tried to make one, but they do tend to be ill-received. It's possible that today's movie could have benefited from the fact that I've never seen the original, but then I went and fixed that right before I wrote this review. The original is generally regarded as a classic, but most classic horror movies eluded me in my youth. I have been trying to get myself caught up on those horror classics, but in this case I watched the reboot first. Well, let's see how it went as I review the reboot of Child's Play. Something goes awry at the Kazlan Corporation's assembly factory, causing one of their new high-tech buddy dolls to receive some interesting reprogramming. Later in Chicago, Karen Barclay is an employee at the Kazlan department store who takes home one of these buddy dolls for her son Andy when it gets returned for being a bit off. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out to be the same doll. What are the odds? Well, at first this doll's new programming manifests itself by making it seem shitty and broken, but Andy starts to like it eventually anyway. He likes it a little bit less when it starts killing people, though. When I had nothing from the rest of the franchise to compare this to, I felt like it was technically fine. It doesn't always make the most sense, but it's a horror movie, and things get brutally murdered. That's really all it needs to go for. But since I found the original movie was streaming on Hulu, I decided that I should go and watch that for a proper comparison, and I decided I liked the reboot better. You can leave your angry comments below. Your opinion is different than mine and that makes you stupid. That's what you sound like right now, so calm down and let me finish. Without the rose-colored glasses of nostalgia, the original really didn't do much for me. I wouldn't consider logic either movie's strong point, as the original had Chucky be possessed by a serial killer, but I guess the reboot is technically possible? I suppose you could alter the programming of such a device, but the logic of the guy that did it was way off. You got yelled at by your supervisor and that made you angry. I get it. My supervisor here is a real asshole. But why is your reaction to being angry at your supervisor to pick a random doll from the factory to make a murder machine to send off to terrorize some family completely unrelated to your situation? And if it was just the chaos of the situation that would make you feel better, why would you do it and then immediately kill yourself so you couldn't enjoy the chaos? Then later, after the Kazlan company gets some well-earned bad press over their little mass murder mishap, why is their reaction to do a recall on the Buddy 2 line of dolls? I thought Chucky was a Buddy 1. Hey everyone, we know there's a lot of reports of these Samsung Galaxy phones exploding, so we're going to do a recall on iPhones. You're welcome. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure Samsung would love to recall all the iPhones in the world, but I don't think the public would consider that an acceptable solution. Visually, the remake is far superior to the original, and for obvious reasons. The reboot probably started with quite a bit more money because it's riding on the coattails of the rest of the franchise, and people are just better at making horror movies nowadays. Nowadays, people seem to try harder to come up with more interesting ways to kill people than they had to back then. The original movie was mostly just Chucky stabs someone. In the reboot, a guy falls off a ladder while trying to hang Christmas lights and brutally breaks both of his legs, and then he has his face shaved off by some garden utensils. And then that face is stapled to a watermelon. See? Imagination. The Jack Black looking dude falling on a saw table was pretty brutal as well. But I would say that there is one big place where this movie failed in comparison to the original. In Chucky himself. He never looked right to me. I don't know if it's just because Chucky's such a known entity that changing him at all was never going to feel right, but it just never felt like they got his face to that right degree of scariness. The cast in this movie was all acceptable. I don't mean for that to sound like an insult, but most things I say wind up sounding that way because of my natural hatred for most things. But they were all good. Not in any amazing standout way, but I accept them all for what they were. I didn't really have any problem with Mark Hamill taking over for Chucky. I mean, I didn't really know it was him until I was told afterwards, but that dude is Luke Skywalker and he can do no wrong. I probably would say that I preferred Brad Dourif though. I wasn't a terribly big fan of the portrayal of Chucky in this movie though. In the original movie, Chucky's just an evil dude that's in a doll now. So his motivations are pretty clear. Continue eviling. In this movie, Chucky mostly came off as a stupid child that killed things because he didn't understand that it was bad or because he misinterpreted his owner's wishes. My owner doesn't seem to like that cat very much. I guess I could kill it, that would make him feel better. But I guess in this twisted way of thinking, most of Chucky's motivations made sense until around the end of the movie. Like there was no reason to kill that cop's mom. That was just uncalled for. But again, Chucky was Luke Skywalker, and he has an arc reactor in his chest, so he can do no wrong by me. I also enjoyed Aubrey Plaza. Her interaction with that customer that was originally returning Chucky was a real window into working retail. The customer wants to return Chucky because he wanted to get the blonde Buddy doll. But as she points out, there's a giant window in front of this box, so why did you buy the redheaded one? That whole interaction is a real flashback into working retail and is probably the scariest moment in the movie to me. I didn't really take much issue with the fact that she blackmails her boss to let her steal the Buddy doll. I mean, we've all done it, right? What I would take issue with is wanting that doll in the first place. Do you know what would make Amazon Alexa so much better? If it was also an ugly doll. And she should also have regretted it all over again after actually giving it to her son. I mean, he seemed to like it for whatever reason, but he also seemed to like it so much that he had no interest in making human friends, which I'm told is bad. Plaza's character also has terrible taste in men. First of all, he's an idiot. Like, he wonders why Andy doesn't like him, but he does it right after he walks out of the bedroom zipping up his fly, just to hammer the point home that I just hammered your mom. Hey, why don't you go ahead and handle that inside the bedroom and then exit? Also, he's an asshole, and he essentially bullies Andy, but in a dumb way. Like, he gets in Andy's face and tells him, if you have a problem with me, you need to be a man and say it. Like, Andy should have just said, but I'm not a man, I'm a child. And you're the asshole yelling at me for acting like one. The Andy kid was okay. The only real issue I took with him is that he seemed to drool a lot. Am I the only one that noticed it? But the biggest issue I took with Andy is that when he and the other kids were standing around Chucky beating him to death with bats, they didn't play that back up in your ass with the resurrection song from Office Space? You know what? That's not fair. The fault there lies with the filmmakers and not with the kids. So that's my review of Child's Play. I thought the remake was fine and probably even preferred it to the original, but just because I watched the original now and without any nostalgia. But the story was acceptable, the kills were pretty cool, and the performances were solid. But I do wish they had just stuck with the original look of Chucky because this version didn't quite stack up. Otherwise, I enjoyed the movie. But I can also understand people not liking it, especially if they were a big fan of it from their childhood. Or their child's playhood? I'm done now. But you don't have to be done because you can still like, comment, and subscribe, and if there's anything you'd like me to review, you can leave it in the comments below or on my Facebook fan page. So that's all for now. I have been Robert, and Child's Play has just been reviewed. Why would you call the Child Protective Services officer to come out and look at the dead kids of her client and probably doesn't have much need to be subjected to that directly? And probably can't do much to protect the children anymore either. Maybe they could just inform her when she comes into the office the next day. Hey, sorry, your client's dead. Here's a fresh one off the pile. We good?